All right. Fun topic today. The question is, can you game the Kickstarter algorithm by setting an artificially low funding goal so that you fund fast and that you're looked at as a winner, and thus it will mean that you will bring in significantly more funding? This is something that I know a lot of creators have heard. This is a tip that a lot of creators have heard. This is a strategy that many creators have tried. And if you go to Kickstarter right now, you will probably see a lot of creators promoting how fast their project got funded as a marketing point and as a selling point. So we're going to dive into this one. Hey, everybody, this is Tyler James. I'm with Comics Launch. For the last 8 years, I've been planning, launching, funding, and fulfilling wildly successful projects on Kickstarter. And for the last 5, I've been helping creators like you do the same through Comics Launch and the Comics Launch Pro community. And so if you're planning on launching a Kickstarter, I think you're in the right place. I do want to make sure that anyone that's watching this that is planning, that is already a successful comic book Kickstarter creator or wants to be a successful comic book creator crowdfunder, go ahead and join the free Facebook group that we have for you over if you go to comicslaunch.com/group. There's a few hundred successful comic book creator crowdfunders already in there. And so I would encourage you to jump in and join. All right, so let's dive into this question. Can you actually game the Kickstarter algorithm, get Kickstarter to promote your project more and faster and better and get it in front of more people if you choose to set an artificially low funding goal, which means it's very, very easy to hit, which means you fund fast, which means you're juicing the algorithm. All right. And this is something that actually came up inside of the Comics Launch Pro private community. This is a group that I run where creators learn and follow my system and get my own coaching on how to do their launches. And there's a creator in there that's already a successful Kickstarter creator, no question about it. I think he's already raised well over $10,000 on the Kickstarter platform for his launches. But what happens when you do this thing is that if you're looking at other creators, there's always another rung up, right? There's always someone that is at another level. And so even if you have success yourself, sometimes you'll look and it's impossible to ignore projects that are whatever the next level is above you. And so this creator actually saw a creator talking about how one of the keys to his successful campaign, he felt, was that he was able to game the Kickstarter algorithm by setting his project lower than he needed it to be and lower than he would normally set. And the reason is because he did that because he wanted to sort of trigger getting funded fast and thus having the Kickstarter algorithm give him preference in the feed, etc. And so there's some logic to this, right? And even though Kickstarter's algorithm is a little bit of a black box to most of us, we don't know exactly. They haven't published or promoted exactly what factors in how they decide which projects get preference on the feed and which projects go into the newsletters and everything. And so that's caused a lot of creators to come up with a theory, right? And the theory would be Kickstarter only makes money when your project funds. Therefore, Kickstarter is it's financially in Kickstarter's benefit to only promote or to primarily promote projects that are funded, right? Because that's guaranteed money for Kickstarter. And therefore, if your project funds very fast, then that means Kickstarter is going to give it a preference in the feed because you've already established that you're a winner. And that by actually setting a lower goal than you need, and a lower goal so that you could fund fast, that will actually result in more money. So that's the argument. Now, what I can tell you, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, is that actually is not the case. All right. There is no benefit to the Kickstarter algorithm by either setting a very, very low goal or by how fast you fund. The reason I can say this with absolute certainty is because a few months ago, I reached out and brought into the Comics Launch Pro community someone that worked at Kickstarter in the comics category. And basically for an hour and a half, we grilled them, or we grilled that person, and got them to spill as many beans as they could legally spill about how the Kickstarter algorithm works and doesn't work. And while, again, I still don't have the full picture, I couldn't go and write the code for you on exactly what determines who ranks where, when. One of the things that I did get confirmed was that speed to funding, how fast your project funds, has absolutely no bearing on your Kickstarter, how it ranks in the algorithm, and has no bearing on where you'll show up on the page. All right. And we've seen a lot of creators that have demonstrated this. If you go and look, a great creator, he's, I would say crash test dummy, but dummy is the wrong word, more like a crash test smarty. But I love Russell Nolte, because Russell, when it comes to marketing, like, he'll try everything, right? He'll try everything and he'll document it, and he'll go out there and test these things so that a lot of us don't have to, and then he shares it back with us. So definitely a crash test smarty is Russell. But Russell tried what is essentially the extreme example of speed to funding. He ran a $1 goal campaign. Now, it was successful. He raised a lot more money than a single dollar, right? But if the idea that that speed to funding is how you game the Kickstarter algorithm, you would think or assume that $1 goal campaign that Russell did, a campaign where, like, if let's say his first backer came in at $30, that is what, 3,000% funded. Like that's that. If and let's say that first backer came in the first like 30 seconds, and 3,000% funded in 30 seconds, right? Like, if that actually made a difference, you would assume that, well, this is going to be the extreme best Kickstarter launch ever. And that wasn't the case. Like, and if you look at Russell's Kickstarter history, the projects with the bigger goals tend to be the projects that he raises the most money. And so there's a lot of evidence that that's not absolutely the case. All right. And so the truth is, the Kickstarter algorithm does not reward speed to funding. And even if you see a lot of creators that will go and they'll update their Kickstarter project graph and say, funded in a day, or funded in the first hour, or funded in 10 minutes, right? Like, that's marketing. That's a marketing hook. That's a potential sales hook, right? But it's kind of meaningless, right? Because you get to set what the funding goal is, and you also should have some understanding or some ability to project what you're likely to raise. So if your goal was to be funded in 10 minutes or 10 hours or 10 days, like, you kind of have a good control over that, is based on how high you set that goal. But remember, like, if you're in Kickstarter's shoes, what would you rather have? A $10 goal campaign that funds in 10 minutes and then raises $100? Or would you rather have a $10,000 goal campaign that it takes the full campaign, but then they hit it on the last couple of days? Well, the $10,000 goal campaign, that's actually going to make Kickstarter more money. It's more of an impact to the Kickstarter platform. And so, and I've seen plenty of examples. Tyler Chintana is a great example. He does very impressive anthology projects with great creative teams, gorgeous art, pays well, and for the teams. And so he sets his goals high. And so, his last Kickstarter project for, I believe it's called Someday Maybe, it was an anthology project. It didn't fund until the very near the end of the campaign, the final week or the final couple of days, right? But that didn't stop it, just because it wasn't funded, from being on the top page and the front page and the top couple of spots for almost the entire campaign. Because the things that put you in those top couple of spots are actually not related to how fast you fund. It's related to how well you as a creator put forth and utilize all the things that Kickstarter can do well. And we're going to not get into, we'll go into a rabbit hole if we talk about that. I go into absolute deep insight in that inside of my comics launch programs, in terms of how you make a project page that Kickstarter is going to love, and the things that they're looking for, the things that they're not looking for. But the point is, this speed to funding game is not a way to trigger the algorithm. Now, all that said, there might be a reason why you want to set an artificially low funding goal, or a funding goal less than you need. Because one thing that is absolutely true is that you get to control some of the how you want to experience your launch, right? And for some of us, we would rather make less over the course of the whole campaign than we would if we set like a really hard high goal and we're driving towards that, the entire campaign long. Like that might work, but if the idea that because we're not funded, we're going to be on eggshells and pins and needles the entire campaign, like the entire month long, and then we just hit it near the end, like that might not be the launch experience we want. And so we might set it a little bit lower than we would if we were just trying to factor in everything. But the best recommendation that I have is still the recommendation that I've been giving for years and that I teach inside of Comics Launch Pro, is that you want to set your funding goal somewhere in the intersection of how much do you actually need to make the thing happen, and how much are you likely to raise given what your project is, the size of your platform, and your past fundraising history. All right. And if you can get those two things right, chances are you're going to have a successful launch, because while the Kickstarter algorithm does not reward speed to funding, there is a danger for setting your goals too low. The danger of setting your goals too low is that you might actually hit it and only hit it. And then you're on the hook for all of the promises of your campaign with an artificially low funding goal and less funding in your bank account after the campaign is over than you actually need to make that happen. And that's not a situation I want any of you guys in. So there you have it. That's the definitive answer for this. Don't try to game the Kickstarter algorithm by setting an artificially low funding goal so you fund fast. That's not actually how it works. Do set a goal that is right for you, your audience, the project that you're trying to do, and the launch experience that you're trying to have. Hope this helps. Again, would love to have you. If you like this stuff, if you want actually the tips and the strategies, and most importantly, the mindset that Kickstarter, how to make Kickstarter and crowdfunding work for you, come join us inside the free Facebook group, comicslaunch.com/group. We'll get you in, and we'd love to have you inside of there. And until then, I can't wait to see what you all launch next.